The name's Irwin Fletcher, and his friends call him Fletch. You might have heard of his stuff. He writes a column under the byline of Jane Doe. It's not great, but what the hell, it's better than Irwin. Hello there, and welcome once again to Real Screen Reviews. I am movie critic Nick Iacobucci, and our next movie review is the 1980s classic, Fletch. This comedy and mystery opened in wide release coincidentally 28 years ago to the day of this recording on May 31st, 1985, and it stars Chevy Chase, Tim Matheson, Joe Don Baker, Dana Wheeler Nicholson, George Wendt, M. Emmett Walsh, and Richard Libertini. Fletch comes to us from the late and longtime comedic director Michael Ritchie, and he is the previous director of The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy, The Bad News Bears, and goes all the way back to The Candidate with Robert Redford. This tale sees the famous literary character of Fletch brought to life from the novels by Gregory MacDonald, and this film sees Chevy Chase portraying the investigative reporter. He has broken big stories in the past and is working undercover as a beach bum to expose the infestation of drugs on the local shores. While working on the beach story, Fletch is approached by a gentleman named Alan Stanwyck, and Stanwyck wants to know if this bum will murder him for $50,000 in cash. He doesn't realize that he's an undercover investigative reporter. Well, as Fletch begins to dig a little deeper, he begins to find that Alan Stanwyck and his cohorts at the beach might just be intertwined. Now, Irwin M. Fletcher must unravel the mystery of Police Chief Carlin, Alan Stanwyck, and the drugs on the beaches that are the shame of the city. Shame of the city. That's very, very nice. Well, people, you are not going to get an objective review of the movie Fletch from me, and that's because this was one of my favorite films growing up and still is today. This is one of the best comedies ever to come out of the entire 1980s, and not only can you watch this movie every day, my brother and his friends actually did for 1985 and 1986. Put simply, Fletch is hilarious, and just like Columbo, Kojak, or Newhart, Chevy Chase is Fletch. His facial expressions, his mannerisms, wisecracks, and improvisation all bring this character to life, and without question, this is the best movie ever headlined by Chevy Chase. Then as this investigative reporter, he has so many disguises, aliases, and one-liners that he just creates mini segments within this full-length feature. Each one is more ridiculous than the next, and his constant smart remarks definitely outweigh any imperfections in the story. Throughout this film, it's like Chevy Chase isn't even acting, and he has so many memorable lines that you need to watch Fletch at least a dozen times to catch all of them. The movie Fletch also gives us good supporting work with Gina Davis as his assistant Larry. Also in the office as his editor/boss Frank is Richard Libertini, and he is just great as this ball-busting boss always worried about deadlines and expenses. Chase also has a credible love interest in Dana Wheeler Nicholson, and she brings a warm, cute girl with big 80s hair to the big screen. Lastly, Tim Matheson and Joe Don Baker round out the cast as the film's antagonists, and they both do a better than average job bringing to life dramatic villains within a comedic story. Now, I must credit at the time veteran filmmaker Michael Ritchie for having enough sense to sit on star Chevy Chase and in turn getting the star's best performance on screen because of it. A lot of people are under the impression that Chase ran away with the improvisation during production and filming, but if you really watch the film many times and watch closely, you can easily tell that that did not happen here. Upon multiple viewings, you can easily see that Ritchie controlled his star very well, and what else he did very well was to pace this film quite quickly. I have always felt that while making Fletch, Ritchie must have drawn inspiration from the quirky comedies of Cary Grant or the mysteries of Charlie Chan, and the correct blending of comedy and mystery is always a positive experience when done very well, as it was here. Thanks to Chase and Ritchie, there is an entire generation of people that can quote this movie, and Chevy Chase singing Moon River, Fred the Dorfman, and the LA Lakers dream sequence will live on for decades. I hate to say this, but I do have a few nitpicking issues with Fletch, unfortunately, and I'll start with how the entire look and feel is absolutely solidified in the 1980s. The hair, the clothes, and the genuine look of the film definitely define a certain era. Also, the score by Harold Faltermeyer may be quite memorable, but once again very techno and very 1980s. This is the same musician that wrote Axel F. from Beverly Hills Cop, and that keyboard theme also sounds very similar to the Fletch theme. If along the way this movie could have managed to sustain itself a little more in reality and less in the world of Saturday Night Live skits, well then it might have actually elevated itself into the realm of greatness. Instead, there are places in this film where the story just gets a little too goofy, and this is enough to hurt the film just a bit. At 1 hour and 38 minutes, Fletch breezes right by with big laughs and great characters, and most of those characters are, by the way, just different versions of Chevy Chase. This film has a surprisingly strong story and mystery at its core, and the screenplay by Andrew Bergman and Phil Alden Robinson is funny, witty, and intelligent. I wouldn't classify this as a very believable film, but it is a very funny one, and Chase's performance alone is worth the price of admission. His memorable characters, including Ted Nugent, John Cocktoaston, Don Corleone, and Mr. Babar, still get me laughing, and this is one of those films that whenever it's on cable, I'll watch it for quite a while before changing the channel. Nick's Real Screen Review is an extremely high recommendation of 3.5 stars out of 4, and that's for the now classic comedy, Fletch. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time that I have today, and thank you so much for stopping by. If you have enjoyed this review, please click like below and give me a thumbs up, or subscribe to Real Screen Reviews if you haven't yet already. I'm sure that I'll be returning soon enough with more movie and trailer reviews, and until next time, remember people, this is Nick Iacobucci saying, I'm not always right, but only when it comes to the movies, and thank you for your attention.